Good morning and welcome to this exciting day to talk about business. It is Business 360 and my name is Blyden Ukem. In Business 360 today, we'll look at the key features in the world of business. One of it being the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement on trade and the importation and all the debacles within it, and we begin from there. The United States has escalated its objection to Mexico's cap on genetically modified corn imports, requesting a dispute settlement panel under the North American Trade Pact, according to the U.S. Trade Representative USTR office. The request to send the dispute to arbitrators was announced on Thursday, after formal consultations failed to resolve deep divisions between the two close trading partners over the use of genetically modified GM corn, widely produced by U.S. farmers. Washington alleges that a Mexican decree banning imports of GM corns used in dough and tortillas for human consumption is not based on science and violates its commitment under the US-Mexico-Canada Agreement on Trade launched in 2020. If the panel rules in favor of the US and Mexico fails to comply with its directive, the US Trade Representative would ultimately win the right to impose punitive tariff on Mexican goods, a move that could spark a North American trade war. Still talking about businesses. BRIC leaders gather in South Africa to strategize on countering Western economic influence and possibly discuss the potential expansion of the alliance. China, India, Brazil, and South Africa host the summit to address shared concerns about U.S. economic dominance, while Russia's absence underscores its international legal challenges. Some of the likely topics to be discussed in this summit include de-dollarization, unified currency, and loan alternatives to traditional institutions amid growing interest from countries like Ethiopia and Algeria. The heights of space and most inhospitable places on Earth. Despite the risks and costs that can regularly total over $100,000, business is booming. But the question is, why do more travelers want adrenaline-filled vacations? Let's find out more from this Wall Street Journal's report.
Years ago, luxury travel agent Roman Chiparuka couldn't sell his clients on a big opportunity, a chance to visit the International Space Station.
I literally tossed, no thank you, I'm not interested.
But 2 years later, he sold a ticket for $50 million that some high-end travel agents are seeing. Their wealthy clients want a dose of adrenaline with their luxury. Here's what's behind the trend and why some experts are concerned about the risks. Tourists have been visiting Antarctica since the 1950s. But in the last few years, companies have built infrastructure to make these trips more appealing to the ultra-rich, like these so-called sky pods.
And those experiences that they want to have that prior to the pandemic might not have even been on the radar are now sort of front and center and on the bucket list. The concept of YOLO, you only live once, I think has really sort of settled into the mindset of post-pandemic travelers.
Tour operator White Desert has built 3 camps on the continent. The newest can only be reached by private jet. Clients can rappel down cliffs, explore ice caves, and hike among fledgling emperor penguins.
So the bucket list trip has become a trip to do immediately, and those folks that have done all of these things are looking for more intrepid and truly unique and enriching experiences.
For these travelers, the cost can be over $100,000 for 7 days.
Both the polar and Antarctic regions are, I would say that they are booming, and it's not just the regions themselves, it's the near Arctic and near Antarctic.
But the polar regions are under threat from climate change. The world's ice is melting faster than ever.
We're finding parts of the ice sheet are melting now and possibly going into irreversible melting.
And in 2022, a paper found that each Antarctic tourist corresponds to about 83
is the standards regarding adventure and business in Nigeria. In a bid to sensitize the foreign exchange market, the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has introduced a foreign exchange price verification system specifically designed for importers to have access to Forex. The CBN stated this on Thursday in a statement from its Trade and Exchange Department, adding that a price verification report from the portal was now mandatory for all Form M requests. The new measure takes effect from August 31st, 2023. Still in Nigeria. One of Nigeria's corporate banking platforms, MoneyPoint, has moved to join the consumer banking market. As a result, it revealed a debit card and mobile application aimed at consumers. This was made known in a news release by Senior Vice President for the Channels and Sales Tool, Ope Adeyemi of MoneyPoint. Talking about currency circulation in Nigeria, of currency in circulation in the country dropped from 2.6 trillion naira as of the end of June 2023 to 2.59 trillion naira at the end of July 2023. This is the first time the figure has dropped since February 2023, according to figures from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and outside the vault of a central bank, that is, all legal tender currency in the hands of the general public and in the vaults of the Deposit Money Bank, according to the Apex Bank. The Nigerian Liquefied Natural Gas (NLNG) Limited has said gas production from its plant in Bonny Island, Rivers State, is still active. It debunked reports which earlier alleged that a continued shutdown of operations by NLNG was a looming danger to the country's annual production of 22 million tons of gas. The gas company made the clarification in an interview and through email put together by its Media Relation and Publicity Division. We'll go on a short break. When we return, Business 360 continues. We'll look at economic statistics all around the world and the very impact.
Have you ever found yourself speaking English with a weird hybrid accent when you go abroad? Or know someone who doesn't sound like a native speaker of a language even when they're fluent? This is why you have a different accent in a foreign language. The first reason is that sounds differ from language to language. Open a textbook, and one of the first things you'll see is an alphabet, explaining, for example, that the P in French is very different from the P in English. Hold the palm of your hand up in front of your mouth and say Paris in English. You'll feel a little puff of air on your hand. Now try the same thing again, but try to remove that puff of air and you'll get something closer to the French sound. Paris. Learning about letters individually tells you very little about how they work when they come together. For example, when certain consonant combinations are forbidden in your native language, you'll often find yourself inserting sounds to make them pronounceable in a foreign one. The reason a Spaniard might tell you that he is from Spain is because SP is just not possible at the beginning of Spanish words. It's the same reason that when English commentators talk about the French footballer Kylian Mbappe, they often find themselves inserting a third syllable to make it more pronounceable, Mbappe. It's because in English, starting a word with an M and a B next to each other is just not done. So people find themselves subconsciously adapting words of a foreign language to fit the rules of their own. The next reason is stress. No, not that kind. It's where people put the emphasis on words. For example, all French words are stressed on the final syllable, usually with a higher pitch and greater volume. That's why French speakers will call the Texan city Houston instead of the English Houston. Meanwhile, English words often have a secondary stress in addition to the primary one. Civilization, for example. Ditching your language's stress pattern is often very hard and is not always well taught. Other elements of a language's rhythm can be hard to pin down. Cantonese and Italian, for example, are syllable-timed, which means that every syllable has roughly the same duration. If you repeat this sentence with every syllable roughly equally timed, you may find yourself halfway to imitating an Italian. Whereas in English, the stress...
Welcome back. It is Business 360, and my name is Blyden Kim. Moving to global economy and economic standings, we begin with Malaysia's economy. Malaysia's economy expanded 2.9% year-on-year in the second quarter of 2023. It was the seventh straight quarter of expansion, but the softest pace since the first quarter of 2020, weighed mainly by slower external demand. Private consumption eased in the first quarter, while net trade contributed negatively to the GDP, with exports falling by 9.4% and imports shrinking by 6.5%. Meanwhile, fixed investment and government spending rebounded. According to standings, on the production side, activity eased for services, manufacturing and construction amid falls in agriculture and mining. For the first half of the year, the GDP grew at 4.2% compared to 4% to 5% in 2023, supported by firm domestic demand. In Japan, Japan's inflation rate is above estimates. The annual inflation rate in Japan was unchanged at 3.3% in July 2023, but was notably higher than market forecast of 2.5%. In June, prices continued to rise for food, housing, transport, furniture and household utensils, clothes, medical care, education, culture and recreation, and miscellaneous. In contrast, prices of fuel, lights and water charges decreased for the sixth month in a row, mainly due to electricity. Meanwhile, core inflation fell to a 4-month low of 3.1% in July from 3.3% in June, matching consensus but staying outside the Bank of Japan's 2% target for the 16th month. Now we go to the charts indicating Japan's inflation rates. The charts this morning. Let's go to the chart indicating Japan's inflation rates. According to statistical standings, the chart indicates that October 2022, inflation stood at 3.7% before moving higher this year to 4.3%, a peak of a year span, and afterwards began to slow down, dropping to 3.3% and 3.5% in April 2022, and 3.3% currently, indicating a slowdown in prices of commodities and the strength of the yen. In Africa, Tunisia's GDP growth slows in the second quarter. Tunisia's economy advanced by 0.6% from a year earlier in the second quarter of 2023, easing from a downwardly revised 1.9% rise in the previous period. This marks the 9th consecutive quarter of growth since a contraction in the first quarter of 2021, albeit the slowest pace in the sequence. The biggest gains and the biggest gains were reported for hotels, restaurants and coffee shops, chemical industries, and financial and insurance activities. On the other hand, sharp declines were seen in oil refining, mining, and construction. The agricultural sector was also down by 12.5%, following a 4.9% slump in the first quarter. Overall GDP growth for the first half of 2023 is estimated at 1.2%. Let's talk about the commodities market, beginning with the energy market. Oil prices set to end week lower. WTI crude prices stayed above $80 per barrel in the early hours of the morning, but were still set to finish the week lower, as China's weakening economy and fears of further U.S. interest rate hikes outweighed signs of tightening global supplies. The U.S. oil benchmark is down nearly 4% so far this week, on track to snap 7 straight weeks of gains. Weaker than expected economic data and a deepening property sector crisis in China added to concerns about the country's faltering economy, with a surprise rate cut from the central bank failing to appease the market. Meanwhile, investors remain cautious amid signs of tightness in the markets after OPEC Plus majors, Saudi Arabia and Russia curtailed supply. Quickly, let's move to the energy market and see what the standings are this morning, and afterwards we'll talk about the metal and agricultural market. The energy market this morning. According to market indices, crude oil price stood or is standing at $80 per barrel, gaining slightly this morning, a 0.08% appreciation. For Brent price, which is Nigeria's price benchmark, is $84 per barrel, a slight decline in the morning market. Natural gas, gasoline, heating oil, coal, a little here, little there, including TTF gas. The metal market. Looking at the metal market, gold prices gained 2.99 points, a 0.16% appreciation. $1,891 per ounce is the price of gold. For silver, a slight gain this morning, equally 0.36% appreciation. Copper price is slightly downward. Steel price has gained 14 points. 3,718 Chinese yuan per ton is the price of steel. Iron ore gaining 3.5 points. Lithium, no significant difference in the market. And platinum, 7.16 points gain this morning. The agricultural market next. The identities of the agricultural commodities indicates the soybean price going up by 11.75 points, a 0.88% appreciation. $1,348 per bushel is the price of soybeans. For wheat price is upward by 9.47 points. $598 per bushel is the price of wheat. 1.61% appreciation. Lumber slightly downward by 10 points. Palm oil dropping 42 points this morning. 3,881 Malaysian ringgit per ton is the price of palm oil. Also, industrial commodities also are a little here, a little there. Let's talk about the foreign exchange markets. After months of drifts, is Bitcoin ready to break out is the question. Scott Bois has more. Let's find out more from Scott Bois.
For weeks, Bitcoin has traded mostly flat above and around the $29,000 mark for over a month now. Bitcoin's annualized 30-day price volatility is now 15.5%, an all-time low. The consolidation in price is consistent with slumping trading volume, and the drop implies traders are less active in the market. However, history has shown us that when Bitcoin consolidates for an extended period of time, that could be the precursor to a major move one way or the other. The Fed's monetary policy is front and center for all asset classes, and cryptocurrency is no different. A decision by the Fed to keep rates steady could cause an uptick in Bitcoin prices, while a rate hike might lead to downward pressure. One other important note is something called the short-term holders' realized price. It represents the average cost at which investors holding Bitcoin for 155 days or less purchased their coins. That price is just above $28,000 and has been a major confidence indicator. A bullish move could unfold if that price rebounds from that level and would reinforce the strength of this support. Conversely, a bearish outlook looms if the price decisively breaks through that level.
Let's move to the market and see what the price of cryptocurrency commodities are. Or currency pair, you might call it, the cryptocurrency market. The cryptocurrency market has shown some decline for Bitcoin. Bitcoin dropping 1,110 points, a negative 4% this morning. Current price for Bitcoin is $26,540. Ether's price is $1,693, dropping 24 points, a negative 1.38% decline. Binance also slightly downward by 1.2 points. Cardano, Solana, Ripples, a little here, a little there. Dollar heads for fifth weekly advance. The dollar index eased to around 103.2 today, but was still on track to advance for the fifth straight week, as minutes of the Federal Reserve's July meeting showed that policymakers traced their upside risks to inflation remained, leaving the door open to further policy tightening. According to different outlooks, the dollar is set to gain against most major currencies this week, but remains down against the sterling, as key measures of price growth monitored by the Bank of England failed to ease in July. Let's quickly go to the market and see what the prices for the dollar would be this morning, the euro against the US dollar, and afterwards, Naira's perspective in the market. The euro against the US dollar this morning has indicated a fall for the euro, slightly dropping from 1.09 point mark to 1.08 point mark, a 0.02 percentage decline. The strength of the dollar beginning to build up. The pound against the US dollar, 1.27 point mark, a negative 0.18 percentage decline for the pound. But let's look at Naira's perspective against the majors this morning. The US dollar against the Naira. Current price is 766 Naira, equaling 1 US dollar. The euro against the Naira, 854 Naira to 1 euro. Upward side of 1.81 points for the euro. The pound to the Naira, current price is 1,001 Naira, equaling 1 pound, a gain of 2.89 points for the pound. Now to the black market, the parallel market. Let's see what the standings are in the parallel market. The dollar to Naira this morning indicates that 870 Naira equals $1 at the buying rate, and selling rate 830 Naira, equaling $1. The pounds to Naira, the price level is 1,190 Naira to a pound at the buying rate, and selling rate 1,130 Naira to a pound. The euro to Naira, 930 Naira, equaling 1 euro at the buying rate, and selling rate 890 Naira to a euro. Good time to look at global stock market. Asian stock markets mostly fell today, following a negative lead from Wall Street after Treasury yields hit a 15-month high. News that giant developer China Evergrande was filing for bankruptcy in New York also dented sentiments. Shares in Australia, Japan, and Hong Kong slipped, while those in China were sluggish. Quickly, let's move to the Asian market and see what the stock levels are this morning. A huge decline for the Asian stock. Japanese shares downward this morning. Shanghai, Chinese shares downward. And Sensex also downward by 73 points. DSE broad at 6,255 index level. It's the only gain so far at 34 points. Upward movement is 0.55 percentage point. Let's look at the African stock market also. The stock market in Africa, early hours of the morning or this morning, indicates that Nigeria Stock Exchange has gained 39 points this morning, a 0.06 percentage appreciation. 64,664 index level is the price level of the Nigerian stock. South African stock market, SA40, SA All, a downward. Egyptian stock, EGX30 also downward this morning by 93 points, and Nairobi stock also downward, and Nairobi All-Share gaining 2 points this morning. And the Nigerian stock market this morning, Dangote Cement has no significant difference. Well, the outlook of the market is still at the closure of yesterday's market, and what the identities of the market is. The update for today's market will be up next later. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Blyden Kim. Here we call it done.